Welcome to the Bella Vista Gardening Program. I'm Geri Hoerner, and joining me today is Eric Fuselier, and President-elect of the Northwest Arkansas Master Naturalist, and he's also National Director on the Wild Ones, which is a native plants and natural landscapes. So that's a countrywide, or is it worldwide?
Nationwide.
It's nationwide organization, and we're so glad to have him here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we're going to be talking about native plants and how important it is to get those into your garden and landscape. So we also am talking about current events, what's coming up, and the next thing coming up is the Bella Vista Garden Club plant sale. And I wanted to mention also the Bella Vista Garden Club is one of our sponsors, and we want to thank both of our sponsors. We have the Bella Vista Garden Club and the Benton County Master Gardeners. So they both are our sponsors, and we really appreciate them. So the Bella Vista Garden Club is having its big plant sale on Friday, June 2nd and Saturday, June 3rd at 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, or no, 12 o'clock. They changed the times, 8 to 12 on those 2 days, and it's at the wastewater company off Highway 71 South. So and it's just open to the public. You don't need an appointment. You just come and get your plants. We have wonderful plants to sell. And you can use a check, or I think they even take credit cards. So just, come and enjoy all the plants that we're selling. You can put them in your garden. And the Bella Vista Garden Club plants website has a lot of information. If you just go to bellavistagardenclub.com, all the information about the plant sale is there, and I think they'll have a list of what plants are available. So, and then in conjunction with the Master Gardener Garden Gate Tour on June 3rd, the Master Naturalists are having a plant sale?
That's correct, yeah. Having a native plant sale there from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, and that's at the Washington County?
Washington County Extension Office down in Fayetteville.
Yeah, and that's at 2536 North McConnell Avenue.
Correct. Yep.
So that's going to be a great plant sale.
Yeah, we have a wide variety of different species that we offer. That are
so now you dig them from your gardens? And
a lot of them are grown in the greenhouse from locally collected native seed. So a lot of them are those local ecotypes, so they're adapted to our the climate and soils that we have here in Northwest Arkansas.
Because a native plant from Louisiana may not be a good native plant for here.
Correct. So. Yeah. Right. And some of the even if some of the same species are growing in both areas, the local ecotypes down there are adapted to longer growing seasons or other climate conditions that they might not be adapted to here.
Might be a little difference in the heat and the moisture,
exactly.
humidity. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that sale too. So the other thing we need to talk about is how important it is to have native plants in your landscape. And when did the Master Naturalist actually start? Do you remember?
The Arkansas Master Naturalist began, I believe, in 2006 down in Central Arkansas, and they were around for many years before we formed a local Northwest chapter, which I believe happened around 2009, 2010, something like that.
So it's been a while that they've. And how many members do you have?
Oh, several hundred.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, quite a big organization.
It is big.
Yeah, our most successful program that we have is growing these native plants in our greenhouse and selling these, and even donating some of our inventory when we have too many. So we're more than happy to donate to nonprofits and schools and whatnot whenever they're going to be put to good use.
Yeah, rain rain gardens
Correct.
And things like that would be perfect for that. Well, that's great. I know it's a great organization. I haven't been able to join it yet, but maybe one of these days. They have training like every year.
They do, yeah. Each year we have several weekends, typically throughout the spring. You can check our website or social media to find out when we're going to be starting to accept applications for the following year.
Well, that's great. Maybe we'll get some more people involved.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hope so. Okay, in the meantime, we want to talk about the actual plants that are your favorites that you brought some pictures for us to show. And I think they have them in some type of order. I'm not sure what order they're in, but if we can just see the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that one.
So what we have here is dwarf crested iris, or Iris cristata, and this is actually the species that got me into native plants. I really started off as a hiker, backpacker out in the wilderness, just doing a lot of solo backpacking in my 20s and 30s and trying to learn all the plants out there. I was more interested at the time in what I could eat and what I could use medicinally. And so I came across this species, and I'm not sure if they're still showing it or not. It looked like it cut off there. But yeah, I spent so much time on the forest floor that time just trying to, looking really up close at this species and really just being taken in by all of the beautiful,
The markings.
the markings. You see all the purples and yellows and all of that on that species. And yeah, if we could go to the next slide. Yeah, and so this is another short one that grows in the spring. This is a short bee balm, or Monarda bradburyiana. And this is where I also want to stress the importance of making sure that you're looking at the scientific names when you're buying native plant species. Because if you just go by the common name, you're oftentimes are going to end up, a lot of times there are some that are non-native that get confused or that have the same common name that get sold as native plants here in Northwest Arkansas. So an example could be like beautyberry. A lot of non-native or Asian beautyberries get sold as native beautyberries, and so that's where it's important to look at that Americana species name, Calicarpa
I didn't realize
Americana.
that. I guess you have to know the species name.
Correct,
to be
yeah.
sure.
And a native nursery should have that listed on the label. But yeah, short bee balm, as if we can go back to the previous picture, short bee balm. Yeah, so this is one of our native Monardas. It blooms pretty early in the spring, and it stays pretty short. Doesn't get very tall. A lot of our other Monarda species that grow,
very tall.
yeah, they will get very tall. But like I said, this one blooms before all the others, and it is a magnet for various species of butterflies and moths, which, as we know, are very important for supporting bird populations.
Absolutely.
So next slide. So this is one of our native penstemons. I believe in North America, all the penstemons are native to North America, but not all of them are going to be native to here in Northwest Arkansas.
Right.
This is Penstemon tubiflorus. As you can tell, the inflorescence has that tubular shape.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is one of the ones that is native to here in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, what I have in my garden is the Husker Red, so is that?
Yeah, there is the red, and I believe that is native to just outside our region, but
But it grows here well.
It does grow here just as well. Yeah.
Okay, and the next one?
And so this is woodland phlox. This is another spring flowering species. This one prefers growing in the shade. It's adapted to those woodland habitats. Again, blooms pretty early, usually March or April, before any of the leaves are out on the trees.
And I do have this species in my garden all over the beds, and after it blooms, of course, it makes a carpet of blue, and then it just kind of dies back and disappears.
It does, yeah.
And then your other plants come and take over.
So this is what's known as a spring ephemeral. So it's something that is taking advantage of the sunlight reaching the forest floor or your garden before the leaves come out on the trees, and then it goes through its entire annual cycle there of blooming, going to seed during the spring, and then by the time it warms up for summer, it's done its thing.
Yeah, it can really spread easily. It's very nice.
That's very true, yes. Yeah, so if you're looking for some good shade, ground cover in the shade, it's a great ground cover.
Absolutely. And this one?
So now we're moving into some summer species here. This is purple cone flower. This is the patch that I have established out in front of my house. And it is one that is another butterfly magnet. I mean, we enjoy sitting out there and watching all the different species of butterflies and birds that like to come to our coneflower patch.
That's the fun of gardening, is
it
watching
really
all
is.
the butterflies.
Especially when you're doing this ecological gardening or native plant gardening, is you really get to see the ecological relationships between many of these species and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's another fun one too. Just has that medicinal property as well. It's a immunostimulant, so a lot of people will collect the roots in the late fall and use that when they feel a cold or flu coming on to help.
Really? Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Yep. So.
And then our next one?
So another summer flowering species. What you see there in the foreground is called cardinal flower, or Lobelia cardinalis. Has these flower shapes that are evolved alongside hummingbirds, and so they are these long tubular shaped flowers. They're red because that is a color that hummingbirds and other birds are able to see really well. And so this is one that is a hummingbird magnet. So if you'd like to grow your own hummingbird feeder instead of having to, refill it a feeder or clean it out, all that sort of stuff, cardinal flower is a really great one for attracting hummingbirds to your yard.
Okay.
And then here is one of my favorite Liatris species. This one I took this photo out at Searles Prairie in Rogers, where it grows wild there, and it produces these really tall purple flower, these little tubular shaped flower heads. Very beautiful. They usually bloom in July. And this is one that once you get it established, it requires very little to no maintenance.
And the deer don't like it, do they?
Deer like a lot of things, but they do tend to stay away from the mints and things with fuzzy leaves, are my understanding. So, and here's a photo I took also at Searles Prairie showing the Liatris growing mixed in with a bunch of rattlesnake master, which is another really great species. Produces these really interesting looking white flower heads.
Okay. And the next one.
So now we're getting into the milkweeds. The milkweeds are important, of course, because they are the host plant for the monarch butterfly.
Right.
So what's going on? A lot of people have heard about the plight of monarch butterflies. They have this annual migration. They leave Mexico, at least the flyway that we exist on. They leave Mexico in the early spring. They migrate north. They have summer. They spend the summer up in the northern United States and then migrate back down the late summer, early fall. But it's a multi-generational journey, so they have to have these host plants along their way to be able to lay their eggs.
Right.
And so since milkweed is their host plant, they depend on milkweed populations planted along their flyway so that whenever they stop to lay an egg, that egg turns into a caterpillar, which grows into the next generation of the butterfly, which continues on the journey. And so without milkweeds, they're not able to complete that multi-generational journey each year.
And it has to be milkweed that they eat. That's
Right.
the only thing they'll eat.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the butterflies will feed on the nectar of different flowers of different species, but yeah, they do require the milkweed as a host plant for their eggs and caterpillars. Yeah, and the caterpillars will eat the milkweed.
Yeah, sometimes they eat everything I have, and I have to take my caterpillars to someone else that has more milkweed.
They will do that, yeah. So that's, but one of the things we have to consider is when we're growing for ecology, that's, sometimes you want some of the bugs and whatnot to eat your plants.
Right.
So it's a little bit different way of looking at gardening.
Right.
But yeah, if we could pull up that purple milkweed, if we can go one slide back. Yeah, so this what I want to demonstrate here is the variety of different types of milkweeds that we have. We have different colors adapted to all sorts of different environments, from full sun to dry soil. This is some purple milkweed that was just growing wild along a fence row near my place. A lot of people use it in their garden as well.
Now, is this the one called swamp milkweed?
It is not. I have a photo of that one later, and we'll get to that one. But yeah, this is Asclepias purpurescens. But yeah, and it's got that really deep purplish red hue.
Right, it's beautiful color.
And I believe next we had an orange species. So this is one that I was growing in a pot a few years ago. And this is some people call it orange milkweed or butterfly milkweed. It likes full sun, well-drained soil. So Asclepias tuberosa.
And they do well here.
They really do.
They really do. Yes, I have that. I have that one.
And this is one of the ones that's easily grown in a pot. Then moving forward. So this is common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca. This one will form colonies. It has these runners that will grow and form a colony. So this is one that you want to have a good area for it, and you might have to knock it back if it gets to be a little too overgrown. Same way with the phlox.
And it gets pretty tall.
It really does, yeah. It can get up to
3 or 4 feet.
Or I've seen it at 6 feet.
Have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it can get pretty tall, yeah.
And then it'll feed a lot of caterpillars.
It sure will.
It will.
It really will.
It's a great plant to have, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have another one here. This is the swamp milkweed.
It's a swamp milkweed.
Some people call it rose milkweed. This one, in the wild, it tends to like wetter soil, since the name swamp milkweed, but it does just fine in a garden setting.
Now this doesn't get as tall as the.
It can get pretty tall. It's
it?
not as robust as the common milkweed, but it can still get up to 6 feet. So I've seen it in the wild get up to 6 feet.
Okay.
So, and then here's a photo I took last year of a monarch butterfly on some swamp milkweed. I believe that was in August or September in southern Missouri when they're migrating back south.
Right. Okay. Then we have the next one.
Yeah, and so here's a great photo of a roundabout in Fayetteville, and what we're really starting to see is a lot of the municipalities around here are getting on board with using native plants in their municipal landscaping.
Right.
You know, especially if a city's trying to become like a Monarch City USA, or they're starting to understand too the role that they can play in helping sustain biodiversity in here in North America.
Right.
So as
And
you're
it's
driving,
less maintenance for them.
it really is. Yep, if you plant them in the right location, it can be a lot less maintenance using native plants than using our more traditional cultivars. And I also want to point out that, you know, a lot of our cultivated varieties that we have used previously, we have native species of as well. If you could pull back up that picture you just had there, that is one of our native, nope, there you go. That's one of our native clematis species.
Right.
So this is a leather flower or pitcher plant, Clematis pitcheri. And so we have different species of clematis that you can grow here as well. And the next photo that we have to show is one of our native honeysuckles. So again, this is another hummingbird magnet. You can see how the flowers are perfectly adapted to those hummingbird beaks. But you know, we have this invasive honeysuckle that's currently in bloom all over the Japanese honeysuckle, and you can really see how it takes over and reduces biodiversity by outcompeting a lot of the native species, because it doesn't have the natural checks on its population here in our ecosystem that it does back where it's native to.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd like to encourage people to seek out native species, maybe some of their cultivated varieties that they have traditionally grown. You know, just kind of expand some of that in their garden, get some more variety. And you can go onto the website for Wild Ones, ozark.wildones.org, and find all kinds of great resources for growing native plants.
Right. It's always best to use a native if you can.
Yep,
you know,
I would agree.
It's always best.
Yep.
Okay, and the next one?
No, that was all the photos.
Oh, that's all the photos.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the other thing I think we need to tell people about is the Bible of basically of native plants. So this is Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy, and it's a great book. I mean, once you read this book, you start looking for native plants everywhere. You really do, because this really brings home the reason that we need to do native plants. I mean, it's really important for the ecosystem. We've lost so many birds over the years since 1940. I think they're down like 30–40% of the songbirds, and so we really need to get these native plants in our gardens.
I think just in the last 20 years, we've seen a significant decline in
Right.
you know, a lot of different species.
Yeah, between the cats and
Yeah.
and the other.
Land use changes that
Yeah.
have occurred. Yeah.
And we put so many subdivisions in, and so many houses have just torn out the ecosystem for us.
Yep.
So,
What used to be native prairie is now getting turned into
Yeah.
subdivisions or pasture, that sort of thing. So you
Right.
lose that support for the local ecosystem.
Right.
But
but I think we're having more local nurseries also having native plants. I think they're going towards that. And I know the Bella Vista Garden Club is converting over to a lot of native plants, really hopefully spreading that.
yeah, I would agree. I think you're starting to see it more and more. There's more and more of an interest in native plants due to the efforts of people like Doug Tallamy or other groups like the Master Gardeners and Master Naturalists. And it's something that you see that this wave of interest over the last 100 years has periodically come back around. We're probably in the third or fourth wave of an interest in native plants, but this time's a little bit different in that we're starting to see a lot more people understanding the economic value of using natives as well. That
Right.
it is less money in maintenance cost
Right.
and having to mow or having to water, that sort of
Yeah, the
thing.
water is important in Bella Vista because our water is expensive
Yeah.
here. So if you don't have to water, that's good. But once you see these lists of native plants, and then you think of what's in your garden, sometimes you find out you do have a lot of native plants in your garden. You just don't realize it
Sure. Yeah.
until you see the list and then look at your garden. So, and I think there's another garden center in Fayetteville that is.
Yeah, White River Nursery
River.
offers some native plants
Nice
at their
native
nursery.
plants there. So, and the main thing is you don't want to just take them out of the wild. You don't want to dig them up in a little field or along the roadside. You don't want to do that to increase your native plant in your landscape.
Yeah, especially from state parks or areas that are supposed to be where these are preserves or protected areas. But if you do collect from a roadside, the seeds
Yeah,
are
seeds
typically
are
what people
okay.
collect.
Yeah,
Right.
that's acceptable, but
Yeah.
don't take the plant. And it probably won't transplant very well anyway.
Yeah, not typically not. And then also when you're disturbing the ground, you're also creating a condition for invasive species to replace that native plant.
Right. So, okay. Well, I'm just tickled to death that we got so many native plants in the area available and can change our landscape and add more.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's great. Okay, and then we also need to talk about what to do in our garden for June. And it's really the transition month. You've planted your annuals and finish, mulching, cleaning up and mulching. So, but the mulch does keep the plants cooler in the summer. It gets pretty hot here in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. And the annuals, you really need to deadhead those for continuous bloom and fertilize them. Apparently the annuals in your pots aren't native usually, and they do require a lot of fertilization to bloom. So that's the drawback, but you do have to have color in your garden. So, and then your herbs are really popular around the area too.
Yeah, especially people that enjoy growing herbs to cook with and using their meals. But if you haven't finished planting, be sure to do this early in the month. Pinch back any flowering herbs to prevent the setting seeds.
Right.
June to July is the time to harvest that garlic you planted last October as well.
Right. Yes, because that takes a full 6-8 months to mature. So. And then bulbs, your spider lily and the naked lady, we call them naked ladies, can be planted for fall bloom, and the foliage will just die back, and then in the spring. So,
perennials such as daylilies should be blooming soon. We do want to deadhead these as the blooms fade.
Right.
Pinch back the mums to remove the heads until July 15th for a bushier plant.
Right. And then my daylilies are budding, and so hopefully I'll have some blooms pretty soon. And the lawns, the Bermuda, you need to fertilize every 30 to 45 days. It doesn't take a lot of fertilizer for Bermuda. And you need to maintain a height of like 1.5 to 2 inches. You don't want to cut it too low. Fescue, you need to have a little taller, and they just require like 1 inch of water a week. So some people put those sprinklers on, for 10 minutes every morning, which is not a good idea. And if you just get a good deep watering of 1 inch once a week, that'll be better for your lawn. Yeah.
If you're growing roses, watch for aphids and fungus this month. You also want to deadhead your roses to encourage new blooms. Fertilize established roses because they are heavy feeders, but be sure to water before applying that fertilizer.
Right.
Water deeply if we don't get at least 1 inch of rain per week.
Right.
So we're starting to get into the time of year where rainfall is going to start decreasing. June is also when the Japanese beetles arrive.
Right.
So.
Now we've been fairly lucky, I think, in Northwest Arkansas the past few years. I don't think there's as many Japanese beetles. I don't know why, but I'm glad. I don't have the infestation like I used to have.
That's good.
So I'm not sure why that's lowering, but that's a good idea. That it's less of those. They cause so much damage.
They really do.
Yeah. And they're not good for anything, just
Yeah.
eating plants.
Example
So-
of a non-native invasive insect and the
Right.
damage that they can cause.
Yeah.
So,
And then on the shrubs and trees, we've had such a terrible winter, and you had to wait so long to see which plants are going to come back. Some of them have just been coming from the bottom. You know, the tops of your azaleas look dead, and then you just don't think it's going to live, but then you see the growth coming at the bottom, and it's going to take several years for these shrubs and plants to get back to where they used to be, the height and all. So I've had a lot of bad winter damage on my azaleas,
gotcha.
but a couple of them have bounced back.
That's
So
good.
you just got to wait and see. And
And just to kind of put another plug for native plants, one of the benefits of these is they are adapted to the winters and the
Right.
summers that we have here, and
Right.
so they tend to make it through drought or
Yeah.
harsh winters.
And unfortunately, I did lose a couple pawpaw trees,
Oh,
even
yeah.
with the watering, because we had such a drought last summer and such heat that it was just such an unusual hot summer.
It really was.
It affected the native plants also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and your natives will tend to flower less during a drought like that as well.
Right.
So if you do want to keep them flowering through a droughty period, keeping them watered is going to be crucial for that.
yeah, absolutely. And then the trees too. I've lost several trees,
Um,
and Mother Nature's in control, and you can't control her. That's the
That's
problem.
true.
So.
very
But
true.
anyway, and then when you do mulch, your trees and shrubs, just leave like an inch or so around the base so that the critters don't get up in the mulch and start gnawing on your trees and shrubs.
Right.
So, and vegetables, I
Yeah.
don't do a lot of vegetables.
Yeah, my wife does our vegetable
Does she?
gardening. Yeah, and so she gives me the rest of the property to grow native plants with. So, but yeah, if you are growing vegetables, you want to monitor the water during this time of year and fertilize your tomatoes, and also begin harvesting those great homegrown vegetables.
Oh yeah,
You
they're
should start to
great.
see some.
Yeah, you can't replace the taste of a homegrown tomato.
You really
with the
can't.
store-bought. You can't do
You
it.
really
It's
can't.
great. Okay, but also it's time to enjoy your garden and just sit there with your little beverage of choice and watch the hummingbirds and the butterflies and even little what they call them, ground squirrels or chipmunks. They're fun to watch, but they can do a little damage in your garden, but not that much. So they're fun to watch. So, and if you have any questions on gardening in June, remember the Master Gardener website is bentoncountygardening.org, and it's filled with a lot of information. And so is the Bella Vista Garden Club website. That's bellavistagardenclub.com. And there's a lot of gardening information on that website. You can look up a lot of different subjects. So, and the Bella Vista Garden Club they'll resume their meetings in September. We take the summer off, and the Master Gardeners still meet year-round except January, and they're meeting the first Tuesday of the month. I think June this month they're having a little different get-together. It's going to be the second Tuesday, and that information's on their website too. So those are both great organizations to go to their website and get a lot of information from them. So,
Yeah, we're really fortunate in this area to have so many different organizations and resources to draw from.
and
or
there's
to
so
get
many
involved
that
with.
are, like members of different, we've got in our garden club, I think we have 17 master gardeners out of 130.
It's a lot of overlap.
And
Yeah.
then they're also master naturalists. And so it crosses, once you get involved with plants and planting, you kind of want to be in everything.
Right.
you
Yeah,
know.
and it's great to meet other people that have these similar interests.
Right,
you
and
know.
they all do different things, different ways. I mean,
Right.
it's not always the same situation. The garden club in Bella Vista does a lot of plantings, and beautifying Bella Vista, things like that. And the master gardeners do that too. So,
Yeah, I believe the Master Naturalist, we sponsor some trailheads in Bella Vista
right,
and in Springdale and Wild Ones. We partnered with the Master Naturalists also to design and plant a rain garden there in Springdale.
Yeah.
So there's just the more of these organizations we have, the more support we can provide to
Right.
each other.
And you're
for
always
these projects.
learning. You just learn so
really
much
are.
from all these organizations.
Yeah.
We learn new things every day. So, anyway, I want to thank you for joining us today and giving us all this great information on native plants. And hopefully, we'll get more native plants in our landscapes.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay.
It's been great being
Maybe
here.
you'll come back someday.
I would love to.
Talk again. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. And the next show will be, I'm not sure what the subject is for the next show. We'll have to figure that out. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show. And until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.